Do you know what happens once you're in the pattern? So you've come to initial and you're in the pattern. It's a trick question. You stay in the pattern. These lines that you see, consider them railroad tracks. You do not deviate. I'm going to ask you questions later that are going to probably make you think that you deviate. You never deviate. All right. So we do a 17-second break. The way I do this is I look in the bottom left of my HUD. I can't add by 17, so I add 20 and subtract 3. Any questions about that?
Nope.
Okay. So getting to the spin pattern, when do you spin? And it says it right here. It's used when there's 2 in the pattern past the bow. Now, I think technically you can have 6 in the pattern, but if we don't have a tower, we don't have all the same tools that they do for SA. So we're just going to say 2. And that's going to look something like this. If you were coming in as, this second set of jets and you have 2 in the pattern past the bow of the ship, you're going to use the spin pattern. Now, the spin pattern doesn't a circle like this. The spin pattern, you're staying at 350 knots, you're not braking. You're going to do a teardrop all the way back to initial. This is why this is the only deviation we do for the zip lip. Because if I'm up here commencing and I don't know that you've spun and I commence and you spin, we're going to end up with compressed timing. So it just lets them know to do another loop, right?
Okay.
Is that making sense?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. So in this case, would you spin?
No.
Yes, you would. There's 2 past the bow.
Okay.
In this case, would you spin?
Yes.
Why?
There's 2 past the bow.
You're getting it. What about in this case?
No.
No.
Right. Now, could you get away if there's just 1 past the bow? Sure. This guy is technically past the bow, and we're kind of putting it on the edge, right? And usually the way this should line up, actually, from what I've seen, is more often than not, this jet's actually on final, and these guys are coming in across the back of the deck. When I'm on LSO, I see that a lot, that sort of timing. But if you had 3 jets, you know what I mean? This guy would be here, and that 3rd jet would be past the bow. So just kind of getting that through there. Any questions on that?
Nope.
Okay. As flight lead, I could tell you to spin. Most likely, I'm just going to put you in the pattern and I will spin. I'll do the harder work, right? But if there was some reason, I could tell you to spin. So, right, you would just climb up to 1,200 knots and spin. Or 1,200 knots, 1,200 feet. Right? Because you go up, clear the pattern, come back to initial, descend. Any questions on that?
Nope.
Is there a particular radio call for a spin, or are you just going to just say in plain English, just spin?
I would give side number and spin, 378 spin.
Got it.
Right. And now if I'm up here about to commence, I'm like, whoop, we're going to do another circle. We're going to do that and come down.
Okay.
Yeah. If we had the SA or, tower working it and they could see it well in lot ATC, we probably wouldn't do that. But it's a rare event and we just need to adjust to it. That's all. Because literally by the time you spin and I'm here and speeding up, we're going to probably meet somewhere down here and it's just not going to work out. Okay. So you are this jet here. You have a jet on final and it looks like to you that you don't have enough timing by the time the first jet lands for you to land. What do you do?
I would say it's at your discretion to slow down and space out for others or not.
Denied.
Just go to land, and if they wave me off, they wave me off.
Stay in the pattern. You stay in the pattern unless you're going to literally crash into them. If he's in front of you and there's no way on earth that you're going to be able to trap behind him, if he traps, I promise you LSO is going to wave one of you. Now, the one I'm going to wave is if you went long as the lead jet and caused this problem and the second jet did it right, I'm going to wave the first jet for doing it wrong. Right? So you don't know who I'm going to wave It's my job to wave you. So you follow the pattern. You follow the pattern. You don't self-wave off. LSO is God. LSO waves you off.
Okay.
Do you know why we follow the pattern so strictly? Because what'll happen if you go long?
I don't know.
Everybody behind you will also continue to back up, and it'll just get worse. So in order to keep the intervals correctly, I mean, everybody should be intervaled off you correctly, and then if you adjust, then you mess everyone else behind you up.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And that's why they're going to try to wave the screw you one off.
Yeah, you screwed everybody else up. You pay, not them. So if he screws it up and there's another jet here and another jet here and another jet here, none of those people pay. He pays. Right?
Okay.
So, yeah. Again, great point, Grendel. I really appreciate that. All right. So you are this jet here. You just boltered and everyone's watching and you're upset and LSO just says, bolter, bolter, bolter. What do you do?
Continue base recovery course.
Okay. In doing that, are you going to follow this orange line or are you going to follow this dark red line?
Looks like the dark red line.
Wrong. You, if there's no one else in the pattern, are going to first things first, positive control of the jet, right? Burner on, positive lift, leave your gear down. You're going to roll right to BRC, but you're not going to offset like this line. You're going to get your spacing, probably a mile or whatever, maybe a little less if you're ready for it. Give yourself time, right? You just boltered. There's nobody else in the pattern. I'm going to always tell you, do not force time compression. Give yourself some time. Take a deep breath. Mentally set your plan. Turn in and go, right? So then you're just going to turn in and rinse and repeat if there's no one else in the pattern. Does that make sense?
Right. So you're just running parallel BRC until you're set to turn, and then you just turn back into the pattern.
Yep. You don't have to offset in front of the carrier like this.
Right. Okay.
No one else in the pattern. That's the key. All right. You have just boltered and you have another jet on initial. Who does what? Who goes where?
I think this is whoever's past the bow first, right?
Yes, it is. So first to the bow wins. So in this particular case, I know these aren't to scale. This jet here is first to the bow. So now when you've boltered and LSO's yelling at you and you're irritated because everybody's watching you, not only do you have to recover the jet, you need to start looking to your right to see if there's another jet that beats you to the front of the bow of the ship, right? So now that they're first to the bow, where do you go as the bolter jet?
Does this one turn in front of the carrier BRC?
Yep. Because now this is where it's really critical. You got to maintain your altitude no more than 600 feet. Because if you're going right and under, this guy is going to break overhead and he's at 800 feet, right? And this is why you do not descend when you brake until you are in the upwind, right? When you're upwind here and rolled out, you can descend. You cannot descend when you're in this turn, because in this particular instance, you could have a collision. So this is why strict flying in the pattern is critical, because I promise you, we like to stack it up in low holding and we like to get everybody coming in a recovery. You're going to see things like this happen.
And so after this, where are we going to go? Are you going to keep flying until there's nobody ahead of you?
Stop.
And then try to slot in behind?
Stop cheating. You're getting to my next question. Well, okay. So we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that interval of how you do that. You're going to wait till they're at your 9 o'clock, but we're going to get to that. So now the roles are reversed. You boltered and you're first to the bow. What do you do?
Normal bolter pattern.
Absolutely. And I have a special treat for you. We're coming in and we're in the overhead. So what's happening here is Game Over and Grendel are about 180 from us. And that's the kind of the initial setup we're looking for. I actually came in and went to be about 180 from them, and we timed it. So we're a little bit off the 180 here. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but the pattern is designed for this to work out timing wise, especially if we commence about the same point, which is what some of the things our flight leads work on, is to make sure we're commencing at the same place and time for the timing and the spacing. So Grendel is leading and I'm here.
Was I leading in this one? I don't remember.
Maybe Game Over was, I don't remember either. It doesn't matter. Either way, they're leading and they're now at this portion and we're over here. So let's fast forward this down. So now as a flight lead, I need to be aware of what's happening down here. I'm using the SA page as I look at my instrument. So when I do this turn back here, I'm doing this turn by numbers. So 800 feet, 350 knots. I have my HSI set to BRC for the TACAN, and I have it on the 5 mile scale, and I'm using that to line up to the carrier, right? In addition, I'm looking down at the SA page because I know these guys are in front. I'm also looking up out of my HMD. I'm looking for their little circles and to know where they are. Just trying to have full SA on it. And as I get closer, I can just visually see them, right? So as I come across the deck, I see that Game Over, he had called the ball. So I heard that on the radio. I knew where he was, roughly speaking, by radio, visual, and SA page. And then let's just play this for a second. And we'll zoom it in. And we'll remove some of these trails. So you can see he bolters. And now my life has to change. I can't just turn in at 1 mile. See how he went straight? No one's in the pattern. He's first to the bow. He's going to turn back in and just take that deep breath and reset. We're going to continue on until he's about my 7 o'clock, 7, 8 o'clock, right? And then I turn in. So he's about that position to me. Then 17 seconds later, my flight is going to break. And let's pause this a second and make the carrier center. So what you'll see with this pattern is how this all plays out and everything resequences as though there was no issue initially, right? So they're 180 from each other at this point, which is pretty common for a 17-second break. That should work out and show you where the timing is. So we should end up about 180 if I did my adjustment to his bolter correctly. So you see how we're coming to the 180. And we can speed this up just a little bit. We're about 180 from each other. Everything returns to normal. Life continues. Now my wingman should be about 180 to me when I'm on final. And the bolter, as you can see in this case, doesn't really cause a problem. Why? Because we worked the pattern. No big deal. Moving back to the quiz. You are the bolter jet and you have a jet in the upwind. What do you do?
Looks like he beat me to the bow.
You could recycle it back to who was at the bow first. And yes, he's at the bow. But just logically speaking, there's someone where you're about to turn in. You can't do that. You're going to have to go this pattern.
Yeah, and then you go up there, it's like 7, 8 o'clock, right?
Right.
And then
Real quick on this one, you actually don't have to go all the way to 7 o'clock, because if you look at it this way, you're both going the same speed now. The reason you do 7 o'clock is because you're flying in at 350 while the other jet's at 150, right?
Yeah.
Dirtied up. That's why. If one's dirtied
Okay.
up and you're going 350, then you need to wait for the 7 o'clock.
But if you're both dirty, you can do this at about 9. If you want to do it at 8, give it a little extra second, no big deal.
So you're showing more of the 7 o'clock.
I'm sorry, yes, the 7 o'clock. My error. And then he would just turn in like we saw in that. So I know it's a lot. I know it can be overwhelming. Just remember the pattern. Fly the altitude you're supposed to be. If you're not clear or first to the bow, do the movement you're supposed to do. The pattern was designed by people to solve the problems that exist. And if there's a bigger issue, LSO is going to take over and tell you to wave off.